friends. As I said, I have missed you. It is so good to be here. It is so good to be back with you, to be able to do this again. Yeah, and if you're new in the last 2 months, hello, my name's Sarah. I'm the pastor here. Very glad to meet you. As most of you know, I sustained a concussion at the end of September in a soccer game. I play in a co-ed soccer league, and I tackled a really big dude, and I ended up falling back and rolling back and hitting the back of my head on the turf, which didn't seem too bad at the time. Not great, but not too bad. And it was about 2 weeks later that I was diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome, which means my symptoms will last a while. So I'm in physical therapy and occupational therapy. So as well as then just spending a lot of time resting as my brain heals and as I work to retrain I have some vision issues due to my vestibular system, which I still think sounds like a Star Wars thing. They've gone to the vestibular system. Anyway, so my vestibular system was knocked around, and so some retraining some of my vision stuff, as well as just cognitive fatigue, so letting that heal as well. So it's been a long 2 months for me, and I just have to first say thank you for showing up here with and for one another through all of this, and especially give a huge public shout out to our staff, to Jason and Taryn and Rachel, who have been amazing through all of this, as well as our church council, all of them, such generosity and just incomparable hard work and focus through this very unique season of my recovery. And also for people like Pastor Ryan for stepping up and being more present and leading communion, and for preaching, and for all of our other speakers and preachers who've been here. It's been pretty awesome and really reassuring of who we are as a community, for all the ways in which it doesn't revolve around me. There are great ways in which we can still be a community even when the pastor's gone. So that's just been a really amazing thing. So thank you for folks who have stepped up. And thank you, too, to those who have brought food and love and prayers that are just sustaining our family through all of this. All of it has been so felt and needed and so deeply appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And to be clear, I'm still recovering from post-concussion syndrome, so I still have it. I'm still easily fatigued, and I have symptoms that are triggered from too much visual and mental stimulation. So I have to take rest breaks throughout my day, so it's just kind of how I plan my day. But I'm getting better, and brains are amazing. They heal. Again, something that I'm so, so grateful for. So I do ask for your grace this morning and in the months to come, which I know you're already so amazing at, so thank you. But we were talking about, I can only do one thing on a Sunday morning. So this Sunday, I'm up front and I'm leading worship and preaching, which means I can't hang out before and after worship. That's a lot for my brain. And so I can't do all of the squeezing you and saying hi and checking in and being present, which is my favorite thing about Sunday morning. So I can't do that. So can I just give you a big hug right now? Can we just do that? Can we just, feel the love? Thank you. It's good to see you. Give me the update. Okay, so yeah. I'll likely retreat to my office after this and with my sleep mask and my earplugs and let my brain recalibrate. So that's what I will be doing. So again, that's how we're making this work, because only one thing. So that's the thing for today. Also, just to name, I think that I am up for this, but I may need to pause and rest my eyes. I may need to be looking at my notes more if my eyes get tired, because they have a hard time jumping from focusing up close to something far away, which is what I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes. So I practiced, I ran through it, and I think we're good. But I also want to name we have a high value of experimenting here at Salt House. And so today we are experimenting with the capacity of my brain, okay? Okay, sound good? So my friends, can you believe that we are here in Advent, right? It's December 2nd. I do feel like it's wildly appropriate that my first Sunday back is the first Sunday of Advent. I'm going to say more about that in a little bit. But I do want to give us just a little bit of context about Advent, why we pay attention to it, what it means. So here at Salt House, we are affiliated with the Lutheran tradition, and Lutherans, along with other mainline denominations, often follow what's called the church year or the church calendar or the seasons of the church. I go like this to show you it's an annual cycle. It rotates through the same seasons every year. And for those who didn't grow up in a community or a church that followed the seasons of the church, each season has a unique theme or focus that's meant to teach us something about the spiritual life that we need to learn And it's often something that we wouldn't necessarily ever choose for ourselves. So these seasons, they give us a chance to actually practice. Some of the key practices are often called spiritual disciplines of following Jesus, and to do it together, to collaborate as a community of people exploring the life of Jesus together. So we come back to these themes every year because we need to keep practicing them. We're never like, okay, got it, going to check that off. There are things that we need to keep embodying and trying together. And here at Sawhouse, we don't always stick to that cycle, to the seasons of the church, but Advent and Lent are two that we really do come back to as touchstones of the church year that are really foundational to the practices that we already have here as a community. So we find ourselves there each season too. So today, as we said, the first Sunday of Advent, which is also considered the start of the new church calendar. Like, turn over that last page. Like, here we are, it's the new year. So friends, Happy New Year, right? Happy New Year, I know, here we are. So Advent, as we know, then spans these 4 Sundays taking us to Christmas. So what are the themes of Advent? What is it that we gather together to practice? So the word Advent means arrival. And so Advent, what's Advent all about? If there's an arrival that's coming up, then what do we find ourselves doing? We are waiting. Like this. So the season invites us to practice, again, what we think is a challenging spiritual discipline of waiting. Again, not a practice that we would choose, right? Because do you like to wait? I don't like to wait. I don't think anyone likes to wait. And yet, waiting is foundational to life, right? And particularly foundational to following Jesus. So we ask the question, then what does it look like to wait? What does that mean? How do we wait? So we're going to spend the next few minutes engaging this question of what waiting looks like and kind of laying some groundwork to set up where we're headed with the series and the content that we'll have for this particular Advent 2018 here in this place. And we're going to begin it by doing that with some reflection, some checking in with ourselves and with our lives. So if it's comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes as we do this, but you can just leave them open too. I want you just to imagine yourself in the middle of a road. This road is the path of your life. A road that when you turn around, you can see behind you all that you have lived through so far. And when you look ahead, you can't see very much. It's unknown. You haven't lived it yet. But where you stand is your life right now in every aspect. So take a moment and turn back to look at where you've been as well as where you stand right now, your life. Consider who you are, where you live, what you do, who you know, your relationships that you have, your financial status, what you own or don't own, your failures, achievements, your dreams, your pains and your joys. Just holding all of who you are now. I wonder, is your life exactly what you expected it would be? Which is a big question, I know. But stay in this space just considering the landscape of your life and ask yourself, is this what I expected? So stay in that space, really on that road for the next few minutes, examining your life, just being present in your life. And we open ourselves up just to letting our conscious and unconscious expectations for our lives rise to the surface. And I want to name 2 things as we do this. First, that yes, we do carry expectations for what, for who, for how our life should go, right? So we're trying to become conscious of some of those expectations rising up alongside our reality. And it may feel uncomfortable to be honest about some of that, so thank you for kind of sticking with that, even if it's uncomfortable. And second, it's not only our own expectations that we carry, right? I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it, that we are told, we are even sold a picture of what our life is supposed to look like. I often refer to it as an arc, that there is an arc, a narrative that our lifetime is supposed to follow, or for the sake of our image today, there's a road that we're expected to be on and to follow a certain path to particular destinations along the way. And this can look different based on our own experience and family of origin, ethnicity and gender and culture that we grow up in, but By just way of example, it goes something like this: that we will have a happy childhood with attentive, loving parents, that we will be smart and athletic and well-liked as a kid, that we will go to college, we will be good at dating, and we will find that partner and get married right on schedule. We'll land a great job, our partner too, if they're looking for a job, and of course, we'll have children. We get pregnant with ease, we have healthy, successful children. We are great parents all the time. We have measurable, you can tell the life stage I'm in right now. We have measurable successes as we work our way up in our personal and professional lives, with ever-expanding income, with ever-expanding friendships, and through it all, there's no instances of health issues, betrayal, addiction, depression, divorce, deaths, learning disabilities, abuse, tragedy, difficult relationships, accidents, loss of employment, homelessness, mental illness. We just keep cruising easily down this road of life, retiring blissfully when we want to, with all of it well documented and filtered on all of our social media platforms, right? So do you know what I mean? Like that there's this expected road. Does it sound familiar to you, or a nuanced version of that? So again, when you consider your life now, who you are and what you've experienced, what you're doing now, is your life what you hoped and expected it would be? Again, mindful of these expectations that are there, this narrative that our culture, our families ingrain in us. It's in the advertisements and media and stories and posts that we see every day, all forming this predictable road for us to follow. So stay on your road. So again, for me, it feels appropriate that this Sunday, this first Sunday of Advent, is the Sunday that I'm back and able to be here. Because the last 2 months for me, I have done a lot of waiting, which continues. And my life, my road, has been very different than I had expected it to be. It included my 40th birthday, which was a wonderful day, but I had to cancel trips to the Bay Area, San Francisco. I canceled trips to Leavenworth. I had to take rest breaks throughout Halloween and Thanksgiving celebrations. All the good Christmas movies are on now, right? And like my vision can't handle watching things right now, so I can't watch them. I mean, Hallmark Channel, this is why it exists, right? Right? And there are many days that I spent more time in bed, sleep mask, earplugs, more time in bed than I spent out of it. So as I stand on the road of my life, there's this obvious present discrepancy between where I am and where I thought I would be, and if I'm honest, it's where I think I should be. And I want to say it this way, that where I find myself with a brain injury as I turned 40 years old, missing out on more than 2 months of my life, I find myself on a detour from where I had expected my life to be right now. So what is so just deeply, fabulously ironic and kind of wonderful is that before all of this concussion stuff happened for me, we already planned our Advent sermon series at Salt House to be one where we talk openly and honestly about the detours in our lives. So that's right, our Advent sermon series here at Salt House will explore this landscape of life's detours. And we're calling it Detour, when life gets in the way. And come on, I have a head injury, I'm on this detour, and now it's like, okay, now you're going to preach about that, so have fun. So, it's just so good. And it's so good because this is us, right? Life gets in the way. We end up not on a predictable path because stuff happens again and again. So my friends, as you look at your life, we begin this Advent journey by honestly, vulnerably asking ourselves, what are the detours that your life has taken? And we have really too many to list, so maybe the question is, what are the detours you are on in this particular season of your life? What twists are you currently affecting you? What obstacles, whether you're very aware of them, and so you're looking around in bewilderment at what's happening, and they're just very consciously present with you, or maybe it's something buried deep, it's more subtle, maybe even something you're trying to ignore. Maybe it's a fresh detour like mine, or one that you've been on for a while. Maybe you've been on it for years. And so you may not pay attention to it as much, but it's still there emotionally for you. And there absolutely are detours that are wonderful, right? Like we want to name those too, celebrate those too, that we're delightfully surprised by where we find ourselves. Name those too, but we want to make intentional priority to attend to name, to bring to the surface the detours we did not choose and probably do not want. So what detours are you on right now? So let's add a little bit more to this conversation. So keep hanging on to all this, staying on your mental road of life. And let's add to this image of the road by turning to our scripture for today. So we're turning to one of the traditional texts that's read on the first Sunday of Advent. And as we do, we recall what Advent is about, this question we're holding, waiting. What does it look like to wait? So standing on our roads, having been detoured, we hold this question. And we turn to the Gospel of Luke chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. So we're going to meet John the Baptist. You'll notice the detail that he's named, that John is named as Zechariah's son, because previously in Luke's Gospel, so in chapters 1 and 2, like leading up to this, Luke has been telling the story of Elizabeth and Zechariah, how they could not get pregnant until an angel visited them and said, hey, by the way, you're going to have John. And then also Mary and Joseph are in the story too, all part of the important events surrounding Jesus' birth. So here, their story continues, so that's what's been happening. And now John, it skips, and now he's an adult, he's on the scene, and he is, in a sense, the opening act for Jesus, right? So he's getting people ready for Jesus before Jesus starts his public ministry. And he is, in fact, if you listen closely, telling them how to wait. So what does waiting look like? Let's hear this reading, Luke 3, 1 through 6. We have the Message version for today.
In the 15th year of the rule of Caesar Tiberius, it was while Pontius Pilate was the governor of Judea, Herod, ruler of Galilee, his brother Philip, ruler of Iturea and Trachonitis, Licinius, ruler of Abilene, during the chief priesthood of Ananias and Caiaphas. I had that all morning.
You're rocking it. Just read it like you know it, and we'll know no difference.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great.
Just say it.
John, Zechariah's son, out in the desert at that time, received a message from God. He went all through the country around the Jordan River, preaching a baptism of life change leading to forgiveness of sins, as described in the words of Isaiah the prophet. Thunder in the desert. Prepare God's arrival. Make the road smooth and straight. Every ditch will be filled in, every bump smoothed out, the detours straightened out, all the ruts paved over. Everyone will be there to see the parade of God's salvation.
Serious props to Amanda for taking on all the names. Yep, it's good. So John here, you'll notice, quotes the prophet Isaiah, pulling to our attention the story that's come before, right? This is the continuation of a story that's been unfolding of God's people. And it's pulling to mind the hopes that God's people had carried throughout the years for the Messiah, for God to come and rescue them and set things right. So Israel, God's people, our Jewish ancestors who came before us, man, they can teach us a thing or two about waiting because they had been doing it for centuries, waiting for Yahweh. They are the ones hearing John's message, and so that's why he quotes Isaiah to let them know that this is all about the Messiah. This is what's happening. He's here. So that's all kind of happening as he quotes Isaiah. And that picture of waiting, what does waiting look like? Just kind of the language that's in that quote from Isaiah. Is it a laid back, kind of just, sit back and see what happens, kind of waiting? No, it's not. Instead, do you feel how active and engaged? Do you feel the urgency that is there in this posture of waiting? This is how we wait. John is clear that waiting means get ready. Get to it, get busy, and the activity of getting ready, it's not even, go out and get all the supplies that you might need while you're waiting or get things in order. It's not that kind of external preparation. No, John invites us into heart work. The traditional language of this text reads that John preached a baptism of repentance. That might sound familiar. But here in our translation that we heard, that he preached a baptism of life change, which is a good translation. We know that repentance means to change your mind, to change your heart. So friends, life change, heart change, this is what it looks like to wait. We get ready on the inside. So reading on in the text, traditionally we hear John's words setting up this how do we wait question. We hear John's words in this text. Usually we hear it, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight paths for him. And in this version, he says, every ditch filled in, every bump smoothed out, the detour straightened out, all the ruts paved over. So is John talking about, well, let's get out the bulldozers, let's do some literal road construction, right? It's time. They just did on our street out here. It's good. No, that's not, it's not literal, right? And so, and to be clear, he's also not saying that we should have that easily smoothed out road for our lives all the time either. But he is saying that there is work to do in us when it comes to the road of our life. And here's the thing. That predictable, expected road that we are told to be on. No one's life looks like that, right? No one. Life doesn't follow an easy road with known destinations along the way. And we know that, right? Right? We know that, right? And yet, do we know that? You see, instead, what if the biggest obstacle that we come up against in the road, in our lives, are not the detours, but are the expectations that we carry? What if it's the expectations that get in the way? To say it again, could the biggest obstacle in our lives be not the detours, but the expectations of what should be? That is what gets in the way. All the shoulding that we do on ourselves, all the ways in which we try to align our lives with the predictable path, those expectations are what actually form the potholes and bumps and twists and turns. It's the expectations and, again, that presumed predictability that make the road of our lives harder when it comes to actually living it. And the Jesus story, including the Christmas story, tells us volumes about this. And you know what we learned from Jesus? That life is detours. The heart change that I want to invite us into for this particular Advent, how we wait, how we get ready this particular year, we heed John's invitation to smooth out that road by doing the heart work, road construction of leveling out the expectations of what our life should be and opening ourselves up to our life as it really is in all of its beautiful messiness and unpredictability and organic ways in which it unfolds, smoothing out the road to make way for our God who is arriving, who comes to us not as we should be, but comes to us as we are. Now that's a series for Advent. So stay with me. Our Advent series, it's going to invite us then to see detours completely differently. Looking at what the Jesus story says about life getting in the way, those detour moments don't have to be moments that get in the way, but they could actually become what draws us into the way, as in the way of Jesus. We've named before how early on in the first century, Jesus followers at the time, they weren't called Christians. They were referred to as people of the way, as in people who followed the way of Jesus, people following Jesus and his teachings as if he were their rabbi and teacher. So it described their way of being in the world. It was a way of being, which was widely known and marked by a way of love and inclusion and generosity and standing alongside those whose rights were not being honored, finding ways to feed the hungry and house the homeless and the refugee. They were anti-empire and lived the way as one that was grounded in the Spirit of God. Something that was really mysterious, but it was within them, and it was in all things, and it fueled life from its source. People of the way of Jesus. So standing on that road of your life, are you still there? Noticing those expectations that we carry, recognizing the detours also that have surprised us. We name that if we keep leveling out those expectations, then maybe when we hit those detours, embracing what actually is our life, it just might change everything. It'll change what can happen on those detours. Those detour moments don't have to be moments that get in the way, but could actually become what draws us into the way. Detours leading us to an alternate route on the way of Jesus. Could that be our new way of walking the road? Is that crazy? So as we close, I want to invite you into two responses this morning. First, we always pass out a bulletin. There's always a bulletin insert. If you have one, awesome. There's more paper too. But first, there's such significance in naming things. So I've asked you to start bringing up to the surface the detours that are kind of emotionally present for you that you are on right now in this season of your life. So I invite you to take kind of the next step with that and actually write them down for you. Just to list them. And again, these are the ones that are most present with us, emotionally present. And we respond then to John's invitation to let those detours be straightened out by first being present to them, naming them. Don't let them trip us up in the same way unconsciously anymore. So we're just present to those detours, just holding them tenderly. And we very intentionally do this work right now in this particular season, for perhaps no other season like the holiday season has a way of making glaringly obvious all the ways our lives do not align with the expectations of what should be, right? As we send out and receive Christmas cards and have meals with family and friends, and we have to answer all those questions about life and relationships and job and everything, and why don't I see him coming around anymore? Well, I don't know, Aunt Sue, So we have to face all those things as people ask those questions. So we do this now to name that we are not alone on the detours. Everyone is on a detour, and so we're being tender and real with ourselves, shaking down those expectations so that we can be aware of them and choose with great intention how we want to celebrate the holidays and embrace what really is our life. So that's the first thing. Name it, write it down, carry this into the week as well. And the second response is for how we can also just carry ourselves into the week. I invite us to be voices for others this week who need to know that their life does not need to match any predictable pattern or follow a particular road or live up to anyone else's expectations. So look for ways to normalize unpredictability, diversity, and affirm those decisions that people make that are true to who they are and yet appear to go against what is normal. So these two things begin with just becoming more vulnerable with your own detours and expectations too, naming them and the emotions that go with that, but then also being an affirming presence in others' detours this week too. And in the weeks to come, we'll see how the Christmas story, the story surrounding Jesus' birth, is just detour after detour after detour. We've grown so accustomed to it. It's like, and then they went to Bethlehem, and then, we just know the story. It's predictable, it's familiar to us, but it was nuts, right? So we'll dig into the lives and stories of Joseph and Elizabeth and Mary and see how much of the Jesus story made known through their stories has so much insight for us as people who also live through detours. And you better believe that they will each mess with our expectations. For could it be that when life gets in the way, it can actually lead us to an alternate route, though maybe not hoped for, that could lead us into where we might need to be? This Advent, we ask that question, and we explore the way together. So we have a song now to enjoy that's going to be led by Anne-Marie called Winter Snow. Band's going to come back up. And really kind of names what it can look like when God arrives, and it's not always what we anticipate. So we'll let this song become our prayer. We can sing along as you would like to as well. But first, let's just make some room to pray together.